Hi, this is Tony Sweet for Truth Be Told. We have Captain Ron in studio. He's already causing trouble over there. We have an amazing guest today on the show, and I'm never good at pronouncing last names. So if I do, you can.
I'll correct you.
Yeah, you'll beat.
Let's see if you get the first name. Let's try that one.
Vanessa. No, we have Vanessa Petronelli.
Petronelli.
Like
close.
Petronelli.
Petronelli.
And you're a trance channeler, international spiritual teacher, speaker, supporting high-performing leaders, visionaries, and influencers in achieving greater personal and professional success, which I think we should talk about this, and I'm sure we will throughout our conversation today, through spiritual fulfillment. For the last decade, she has helped transform and inspire thousands of lives around the world from the inside out. So please, welcome to Truth Be Told. We have Vanessa Petronelli.
Oh, yeah.
I get the applause.
They're in the background. You can barely see them.
Right.
Just off camera.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Fighting
here.
the LA traffic. It's Captain Ron and I, we rarely get to have anybody in studio because usually they're all over the world or around the country. So it's nice to have a lovely face in studio. I get to see that one in studio.
Yeah, imagine that. See, this is a nice upgrade, Tony.
You guys are sweet. I'm happy to be here. And it was
she says
worth
before the show
drive.
starts, wait till we dig
I know.
into this one.
In the next 50 minutes, you can ask me the question.
Right. And she'll be like,
If she
I'm
lasts
outta
that
here.
long.
She's like, I'm out of here.
Yeah, this one, Vanessa, is really sort of, to be honest, out of our bailiwick. This is not stuff we typically talk about. I mean, this is something I don't know about. Typically, these other shows, these alien shows, I know the cases, I know the questions, I know that material. This I do not. Mm-hmm. And also, this is a tougher one for somebody outside of that world to grasp. Yes. So what we like to do is kind of get to the truth of what this is. So why don't you start off and tell us what a channeler is and versus, you're a trance channeler, right?
Yes.
This has nothing to do with sexuality, right? This has to do with
not trans.
So tell us how those things differ and what they are and how that whole thing is, so we can get an understanding.
I mean, for starters, I know it's really weird and out there and out of the box. Like, I'm not delusional.
Thank
around
God she
that.
said it. I didn't have to, Tony. So
I understand, and it was also really strange when all of this happened to me too. I didn't grow up in a family or in an environment where I had parents talking about intuition and psychic abilities and UFOs and trance channeling.
So they would have looked at you a little crazy, I'm sure.
But I've had these abilities since I was a little girl. And they've been one of the tools, I would say, that's helped me to stay connected to who I am and to help me on my path. So I want to set it up as in, this didn't just happen out of nowhere.
Wasn't a near-death.
Well, that we hear frequently, right? I mean, most people that have these abilities say they had it their whole life. When I was 4, I saw my grandpa walking around, whatever.
It's usually whole life or a near-death experience.
Right.
Or trauma. Exactly. Good, Tony.
I mean, I had a really, really keen desire and connection. I was always a seeker, even as a little girl, around the stars. I mean, even if you go to my website, my opening of my story is I never believed I was from here.
Are you a Sagittarius?
No.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Virgo.
Oh,
Leo Cus.
that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Palladian.
Palladian.
Me too.
So, I kept these gifts under wraps. I kept these interests more so private for majority of my life, because there was already some sort of awareness that if I told people around me, they would think I was strange or like there's something wrong here. But I always had this feeling like there was something off about the planet. There was something that we weren't tapping into, and there was a mission or some sort of purpose that I came to the planet for. And I had this intuitive knowing. I had this connection to the stars. And at 14 is when I heard a voice. So my channeling abilities, I want to set this up. We're all channels. There's nothing more special about what I do than what an artist does or an actor does when they are, in their role. When an artist is painting, when we're in a flow state, we're channeling information through. It just happens that I channel a higher consciousness set of beings called the Pleiadian guides when I'm in trance state. But prior,
Okay, now hold on. Well, listen, you got to go slow with us today
Okay,
because
I'll
we
go
really don't know. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, Tony and I have talked about this a lot. This year, I'm open to the after death thing now. We had Richard Martini in here talking about the case studies and the soul groups and all that. Now, you said the Pleiadian group. Now, does that have to do with our souls, or are these aliens, angels? What are we talking about?
Another dimension.
Yeah, they're an extraterrestrial race called the Pleiadians.
Okay.
So how they've, I guess, shared who they are with me is they're a 5th to 7th dimensional race, extraterrestrial race that resides in the Pleiades star system. And they are basically us as humans in the future, and they've come back in time and space. Well,
Now she's
space-
adding another layer.
Yeah,
It's
that-
time travel and
to help us evolve in our consciousness. Now, different channels will have different information.
Right.
Is my sense from doing some of my own research around this. And for me, the beings that come through are a trio of light beings. So they don't come through with a physical body, although people have said that there are Pleiadians that reside on the planet.
they say they're like Nordics.
Exactly, the Nordics.
I mean, I don't know. What do they look like?
Well,
Nordics.
I had an experience like at the Conscious Life Expo in Toronto several years ago, like years before the trance channeling came in, because I was channeling intuitively, connecting with people's higher selves and channeling angels and ascended masters. So for most of my
Oh,
career,
see, so there's a thing right there. So it's not just aliens; it's also angels and
yeah, I had and I would my clairvoyance, my claircognizance. So I don't know, are you guys familiar with the clairs?
Right.
Have all simultaneously or opened up one at a time. And so when I started to do this work, probably around the second point in my spiritual awakening, that's when I started to have these visitations. I started to get voices coming through of angels. They would show up as angels. They'd say, put your hands on somebody's body to heal. I would, be able to touch somebody and be able to see what was all their blocks.
and it would appear as an angel to you.
Yes.
Okay.
Not out here, but in here clairvoyantly.
Got it.
And
third
same
eye-ish.
thing, yeah, third eye-ish, and just a deep knowing from a frequency level that, I'm not connecting to something here. When I would connect with, say, a deceased ancestor of a client that I'd be working on, they would show up looking human in their human form and would have information. So I want to kind of just set that up, that the alien, the trance channeling, trance mediumship channeling didn't come through until a few years ago, but I've been channeling for many years.
And how do you know what's an old soul, what's an angel, and what's a alien?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
It is a great question.
My first show, so we're trying to.
Well, I mean,
about
old
time you get
souls, for example, when I was growing up, I would have people say, Vanessa, she's an old soul. And my sense around that, because here's the thing, like, I'm not one of those teachers that comes in and says, this is the word. This is the absolute fact and truth, and you have to listen to what I have to say because of who I am. It's more about empowering other people to find the truth within themselves. And that's where we're at right now collectively. However, when, in my own experience, old soul has to do with somebody who maybe has incarnated in multiple lifetimes and has come through and has the wisdom, has the knowledge, has a certain knowing of something beyond their age. So as a little girl, this is a great example. I would have schoolmates and peers come up to me and just open up, share their deepest problems, what was going on at home. And some pretty dark stuff would come up, And I remember as Vanessa thinking, why are they telling me these things? And just this advice coming through of a knowing of how to help them. I don't have some sort of psychology degree or I mean, I was like 9, 10 years old here, people. So. And I was always told from teachers, Vanessa's an old soul. She's an old soul. So
Tony's just old.
True.
They don't say the soul part.
I
That's
don't know.
why I
He doesn't
stay
look
Tony's
away.
old.
That's why I stay away from you, so you can't
doesn't
see.
look old to me.
That's why he's buried back
He's
there.
taking care of himself.
you.
You're hiding
That a
though, a
boy?
little bit.
Actually,
I think
10
you
years
need to
older
come
than he is, but
forward.
look how terrible he looks. Just kidding. I have a question. So, as an intuitive and even as a young child, old souls usually include past lives.
Yes.
So have you had experiences of flashbacks of your own past lives, and when you're also talking to, as a young child or even some of your clients, getting some of their past lives, and have you done regressions?
I have. Yeah, I've done an extensive amount of, like, I call it inner work, where I have gone into past lives. I used to have recurring dreams as a little girl about a house burning down.
Oh, wow.
And me being the cause of it from another lifetime. I mean, there were like night terrors. And definitely we're not connected to something that happened in this lifetime.
Now, see, that we're a little bit familiar with. That's what Martini talked about in those case studies for 7,000 cases or whatever. So we're that makes
familiar with this.
A little bit more familiar with this.
Yeah. So you asked as well about the piece around, so there's old souls, and then there was a second piece was around aliens and angels, and what's
How you
the
differentiate,
difference.
right.
So for me, the first voice that came through is how I would define as God. It had a certain, I mean, for lack of better description, it's so hard putting English words into describing something that's so abstract and so, I mean, big. We're talking about creator source energy coming through, but it felt to me, the magnitude of it felt like a God speaking and telling me to go into certain points.
How do you separate that from id? But
No.
like, the ego, isn't
Yes,
it? That's what we think is our little voice in the head.
Because here's how I look at the id or the ego. That voice is the voice of, it can be fear. It's rooted in separation. There's a tendency to be very future-based or past-based. And the voice of the ego, there's just a certain kind of, if I look at it from an energetic state, there's just a certain way in which it is interpreting information. It is not rooted in what I would say when we feel divine love or the love of our beautiful guides or team or higher self or God even. There is a weight to it. There is a love to it. There is a feeling of safety and truth. And I believe that every person has the deep truth that goes beyond what we think is true based on our conditions, based on our opinions, based on what we've been raised to believe. I call it programming. That results in this feeling of like, man, like I feel like this is true. And I had never heard a voice say that to me, but the voice said to me when I was 14 years old, you are meant to do something on the planet that's going to help people, and you're going into the entertainment industry. And I had zero desire as a kid to go into that industry. I had no connection to it. I grew up in Toronto, and I had been musical and very artistic and all of that. I was good at those things. But the way everything lined up was no short of a miracle.
Felt meant to be.
100%.
And you attributed that to God is how you assess that first.
Yeah,
frame.
or
Okay, right.
just even if you want to get even lower on the totem pole,
Or spirit
in a sense,
guide or something.
like a spirit guide
Right,
or
okay.
a soul. But for me, it felt like God, and that was what really resonated for me. And so I got into this industry and spent 10 years in that. And that's where I went through a series of my awakenings as a teenager and a young adult in my 20s, and got into conspiracy theories and started to get into coaching and landmark. And it was as if all of the layers of what I had kind of been knowing as a child of something's off about this place and I can't quite figure it out, started to reveal themselves to me. And the more that I was getting connected to myself and staying in alignment with that and really listening and connecting to what I call your inner self or your higher guidance,
Right.
the more I was seeing things were shifting and moving and things were dissolving, and I was getting closer and closer to what I was really here to do, which I believe is what I've been doing for the past 10 years, and even more so now I work with a lot of people in Hollywood. So I'm bringing this higher consciousness spiritual awakening.
Well, you
into
bring
this
up that
industry.
higher self thing. That's what Martini was talking about, that part of our soul stays behind. We never completely come here when we get reincarnated. There's still part of us always there. Is that what you were talking about?
Well, a higher self is just a really simple way of saying, it's your I am presence. It's like the chip off the old block of source, creator energy, and it's coming through as you. It's the spiritual.
She's
part
talking
of
like
you.
everybody uses these terms all the time. It's like, no,
I know.
people don't even talk like that. So the carburetor on my 71 Ferrari, what are you
So it's the part of you that is not separate from the creator. If we want to put it very simply. It's the part of you that's infinite, that never dies, that never leaves this physical body, I believe. It comes and goes. We have different lifetimes where we are a different, skin suit.
You see, that part I can understand. Go ahead.
But
Tom.
how do you, as an intuitive and trying to, bring light and love consistently into your life, how do you protect yourself from, because being in entertainment industry, there's a lot of negativeness and also conspiracy theory. People can go way too far and it gets really dark.
Yeah.
So how do you connect the two and stay enlightened and not get drawn into that darkness?
It's a fabulous question, and one that I actually get asked often, not maybe worded so articulately the way you've just framed it, Tony. So thank you
He
for
knows
that.
the stuff over there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's good. You're on
Thank
the
you very
ball.
much.
I mean, to be forewarned is to be forearmed in that sense. So I knew, for many years working with all kinds of people from all walks of life, what I was eventually getting into when I got the message that it's time to shift and work in Hollywood, bring this energy into Hollywood. For me, it's a consistent, ongoing, daily, multiple times a day, checking in with myself. The more that I am staying connected to myself and knowing what I feel like when I'm in a pristine state or when I'm feeling positive, if we're going to use a very easy word for a lot of people
better
to
for me,
digest.
so I understand.
Yeah. I know what my vibration is. I know how it feels to be me, and I have a lot of tools, and I've been trained for many years with many different mentors and teachers and people. I do ongoing work to know and to keep this feeling clear and not filled with other energy, whether it be from people bringing or sending energy to me or me channeling something that is not pristine. I mean, I have a team of support that I work with, and it's a consistent, ongoing thing. The most important thing for me is to be in integrity with myself, with my word, and with my divine part of myself, to be able to do this work in a way that I believe hasn't really been done before on the planet. And I'm not willing to compromise that. I have to be true to myself. My entire life has been spirit-led or God-led. And that's the number one guiding star, North Star, if you will, that takes me through this and protects me. I really do believe that I feel ultimately very protected.
Okay, I can see that. I can see how someone has their own spiritual thing and they have this connection with God and or their soul groups because all these other guys are saying the souls and that. I get that. But now it's another leap altogether to say, and there's the star system that's 500 million light years away, and I talk to those people.
Listen, I completely get it. When this happened, it was extremely unexpected for me.
Okay, so you did have this other stuff first. So you had, okay, that makes sense. So when did this Pleiadian stuff happen?
So I went to Mount Shasta in, I think it was 2016, in fall of 2016.
Awesome.
If you've ever been to Mount Shasta, there's a lot of really interesting stories.
UFOs go right into the mountain.
Right in the mountain, St. Germain's Mountain there. There's all kinds of beings that live in the middle of the earth. And
they sell bruschetta on the street, right? Oh, that's unrelated. Never mind.
I believe it's the Lemurians that are in the earth. And, you'll see all kinds of interesting experiences. I think even the woolly mammoths or the other woolly man. I can't remember the name, but it's a very, very beautiful and interesting place to visit. And when I was there, I was actually there for a business mastermind, and the gentleman I was working with at the time was a trance channeler himself years prior, and he had done it for many years in Sedona. And it was interesting because he had kind of stopped doing that. He had put it to the back burner, and nobody really knew what his story was. But it was this particular business mastermind retreat in Shasta that he opened up and revealed his past, his stories, his connection to his channel, the being that he channels, and all of his UFO experiences. And what was really interesting is I started to have very visceral, like physical, visceral experiences as he was telling his story, like almost describing like I was getting very activated physically by what he was sharing. And it was very odd. It felt really odd. But for years, I was having dreams about UFOs and aliens. I felt like I was having visitations. And when he told the story, it was the similar kind of feeling I would have in dream state and in the middle of the night when I would have these visitations. And then he had another woman come in to channel for us. And that blew my mind. I cannot remember the lady's name. He channeled, it was mind-blowing. You know, I asked questions.
So he spoke to the one that he always talks to.
Yeah.
And that was an alien as well.
Yeah, I think the being that he connects, if I can remember correctly, is Ra, I believe. I think
Egyptian god?
We had that guy on at the Conscious Life was Bashir or something.
Bashar.
Bashar.
Yeah. I think it's not correct. It's not Ra. It's somebody else. But anyways, aside from all of that, he channeled. I felt, a visceral response. Something was happening. And then this woman came in and did another channeling. And it was pretty trippy. She took us through this whole experience where we were going through our galactic lineages. I mean, the girl beside me who was not into this at all, she was a publicist herself, was having all kinds of things going on, like she was on some sort of plant medicine or tripping out on something.
Wow.
And then I opened my eyes at the end, and this woman's entire face looked like an alien. And we all saw it in the group, and we were like, holy smokes, what is going on here? It was after that retreat that I started to have, because I can hear clairaudiently, a new group of these beings coming through who were extraterrestrial. And that was the first part of it. And
how do you know they're extraterrestrial? You were talking
because
to
they
these
would
siblings.
talk about it.
They would say, by the way, I live over here.
This is we are your star family. You have been afraid of us for a long time. You've channeled all these other beings. You connect with all these other guides, but we're over here and we've been with you your whole life. You know that. You used to look at the stars. You remember.
And they know you're talking to these souls and all this. They know everything.
Yeah. It's almost like they're there watching in a sense. But because I actually had a really deep fear of aliens and extraterrestrials, there was a fear there. I didn't want that energy to come in because I was always afraid of getting abducted.
Do you think there's, I don't think there's a difference between Christianity and hearing God talk to them. What's the difference between God talking to a Christian than an alien talking to an intuitive?
It's the lens through which they're seeing it and hearing it.
So it's definition, right?
So if you think about it, I mean, because you hear it all the time, God spoke to me.
Right.
And what's it? Because I'm like, they're in a different dimension.
Yeah.
So what's the difference of a Palladium?
And those are the same people that say that those people are crazy, which is the most insane thing to me.
So if you think about it, it's
I get it.
Yeah.
I think they're all nuts. I mean, no,
and the lights lit up from the people calling in. No, just kidding.
Yeah. So, after that experience, I went and did this workshop. And it was in this guided process that I was taken through by another healer and shaman and channeler, where all of a sudden something that I still to this day I can't even fathom happened, where I literally felt my whole being shoot up to another planet. My whole personality got pushed to the back. We were doing these movements which activated the channeling to open up, and these beings came through. This was Sirius A or B, those planets, the blue planets, came through, and this being basically spoke in this light language. And I had remembered hearing this light language because I used to do it as a kid in my bedroom with the door closed. I'd forgotten about it. And then did this activation with the third eye chakra and the heart chakra. It was very choppy when it came through, but it literally felt like I was plugged into an electrical socket. I was standing up. My feet felt like they were levitating off the ground. I know the story is just totally out there. People are going to think, oh my God.
Unlike everything else you said so far.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, this one's.
I know. And it was surreal. And I came out of that experience when it ended humiliated, embarrassed, ashamed. I didn't even know what had happened to myself.
Why would you be ashamed of that? To me, that's an actual incident. That's almost like an abduction. Like, to me, that's just something that happened to you.
I had no idea what happened. I mean, it triggered some of my own stuff exactly what you're saying. You know, oh my God, people are going to think I'm weird. People are going to think I'm completely crazy. I'm pretty freaking grounded. Like I'm here on Earth. I'm not trying to transcend and leave the body and go to other planets and ethers. Like as a spiritual person, like I'm integrated. I'm embodied. And for me, having that kind of experience, which is very out there, just seemed even a little bit much for me at the time. And I can tell you from that moment on, everything in my life just felt like it was flipped upside down. It was an energy, a vibration I'd never worked with, I was unfamiliar with. I didn't feel very guided initially when it happened. I felt like I was on training wheels as a teacher with this new activation of this trance channeling coming through. And I didn't understand it because there really is no logic to it.
So that was
in
the first
sense.
incident that sparked this thing. And that was a couple of years ago?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And then I was starting to bring this channel through, and different beings at first were kind of coming through. And I had been guided in this process of finding your, what they call your galactic counterpart, like the being that chooses you to channel as an ambassador, if you will, for the awakening of humanity. And it wasn't until several months later that the Pleiadians came through. And when they came through, it was like that. This is it. There are
other people who have said this, specifically from the Pleiadians. I mean, that's kind of a...
And what is their purpose of revealing themselves to you?
Right.
And because we hear a lot of times we're here to help, but what is their true intentions?
So what I love about working with them is they're very much about empowering each person who comes and receives their transmissions, as they call it, the information, the guidance, the messages, the light language, the sound tones that they do, about empowering people to become their own authority and reconnect with, they call it your magnificent self. Very simply put, your magnificence, your full expression, living a life that feels inherently yours and not based on what other people do. So it's very closely linked to what I've been teaching for many years. So it's not like it's out of the ballpark, but the way they are able to share the information and guidance is offering a perspective that I would not necessarily, with even me just consciously channeling and tuning into your energy and coaching with you, I can't do. They have a way of framing things that is very strategic and grounded and clear and precise.
Well, give us something specific and precise that they've given. Give us a message that you would get.
Oh, what's one of the latest ones? Well, one of the things that they've talked a lot about, and this is actually, I think this will be very helpful for some people, is understanding that when you are spiritual, a lot of people who are into this kind of work, I don't know if you've noticed this maybe with guests or just being out, you know, in the world, spiritual people tend to disown the human experience. There seems to be this, I'm going to give my power to a psychic or a channel or this type of person who has access to these things.
I have not noticed that personally. I haven't.
No?
That's not something I've seen that they give up. No.
And there's a lot of people in the spiritual communities that I have met that tend to favor having these out there experiences, novel experiences through, doing recreational type drugs or plant ceremonies.
Now.
Going and seeing people who have this access. There's this feeling of disowning the human experience because giving the power away to something
They know there's so much more.
Yeah, there's so much more.
Right.
And then there's like this poo-pooing almost of being human. And the Pleiadians have come in and they've been very clear. Like, it is not about transcending and leaving your body and having all these out there experiences. Like, that is a part of somebody's path, then sure. It's about recognizing and turning on what the human experience is meant to be.
I was going to say, I would think we come to this planet
For a reason.
to
reason.
experience the human experience.
Totally.
Not to just always think about, oh God, I'm over here, and because
But there are a lot of people who are like that, and then there are a lot of human beings who absolutely are in such fear and limitation. They don't even know a glimpse of their power.
Right.
They don't know what their magnificence is. They are not led to this path quite yet. So this whole, one of the most beautiful transmissions has been about come back into the body, come back into your heart, feel your emotions, become integrated, get clear on what those passions and expressions and things that you love to do. Let go of all this stuff in the head that is telling you that life should be like this and I should look like that and I should do this because this person said so.
That sounds very earthly, though. That sounds like something your high school counselor would say to you, doesn't it?
Not really. My high school counselors never said that.
Yeah, I think you shouldn't care what other people tell you, dude. If you like to play that game or
But there are a lot
whatever.
of people who are living their lives this way. I mean, I think more than anything, what we need to be aware of is being open. If we're open or being closed. The other piece that they said recently was very interesting was around integrity and wealth. We're seeing a lot of people in the public eye now coming to the forefront and the truth being exposed around what they've been doing and the lies they've been telling and the deceit and the manipulation and the hidden hand working behind the scenes. Oh, I'm going to tell the public one thing. I'm this person. Behind closed doors, they're doing a whole other song and dance, right? They're saying that now's the time that wealth and power are equated with integrity.
Well, it reminds, if you think about it, when people win the lottery and they win $200 million, $300, $400 million, how many of those people allow that money to take their life, what you would think would be more consistent, stability, to where it turns them upside down and destroys them?
Right.
I remember going to Della Reese, who, Touched by an Angel and all that. I remember going to her church, and she said it's not about having the money, it's about what you do with the money. It's the same about coming here and intuitive and relying on other people. It's how you interpret it and how you use that ability, because it can destroy you.
Absolutely, it can. It can be misused for purposes that manipulate and deceit people and take advantage of people who are vulnerable. And we see a lot of spiritual teachers and gurus and people who, have been exposed for doing these things where they say one thing and then behind the scenes they're doing another. We see this with politicians. We see this with
religion.
people.
We've had those come on
Hollywood.
here and tell us that there's tons of them that are frauds, and they can spot them right away.
Yeah, I mean, it's about upgrading really the human experience. But the Pleiadians, and why I love working with the ones that I work with in particular, are really about helping you.
But why do they care? Why do they care?
Because we are connected to all these other star systems. So human beings seem to think that we're the center of everything. And we have an important role. Our ascension at this time plays an important role, but not just for this planet. It affects other star systems. It affects other, beings. And I mean, we are aliens to the other beings on other planets. And
Well, they say we reincarnate in other worlds oftentimes.
Yeah, there could be other star systems where there are humans having.
I don't see
similar
why that's not
experiences.
possible. That doesn't.
I mean,
that's
think
not.
about it. There's a lot of
The
space
hard
out
part
there.
is that you're talking to these guys 500 million light years away. I mean, that is the hard part. Most people, I think, in the regular world would say to you, "What are you talking about?" I think that's the hard part. How do you convince them that that's really happening? Because the message you said they gave you wasn't profound. Like, well, here's the formula for.
Well, it's more profound when you're in the experience of receiving the channeling. I'm saying it very simply put in terms of explaining it in a very, real world way.
But I thought you were going to say, like, in 7 days there will be a.
No, they're not they're very clear. So one thing that they're very clear with, they're not fortune tellers. They're not here to tell you what's going to happen on the planet. They're here to empower us as conscious, powerful creators, as magnificent creators. We are here to create what's going to happen on the planet. They're just helping us with our individual experiences as human beings, with the blocks, with the challenges, with the things that are stopping us from being in our magnificence. But they're not here to prophesize what's going to happen. Prophecy is a very dangerous thing, and I see way too many spiritual people doing that because we have multiple timelines. We can change and course the altar of
that
our
would be the
lives.
first sign of fraudulentness to me.
Yeah,
you're start doing
I've even as when I was doing readings and a lot of healings early on in my career, that was the one thing that really that felt very misaligned to me. I'm not here to tell you what's going to happen in your life. You're here to create it. You're here to become empowered enough to make.
But
the
what do you
right
say to
choices.
people that say, "I don't believe you're talking to people that live this far away"?
That's great. I totally honor and respect that you have that belief and you are entitled to having that experience. I don't convince people of this. I really wholeheartedly have been trained with my connection to trust that the right people will come at the right time who are ready to receive.
But you know that it's happening. You believe it.
Totally.
Okay. And then do you also believe that all of us have this power?
I believe that many of us have this power. I do. We're all channels. Trance mediumship.
We often hear that we all can do all the even the remote viewing guy said we can all do that.
Yeah, we can all.
It's like
do
all
these
of these things we can all do, but yet very very few of us do.
Because we're not activating those energetic parts in our system to be able to turn. I call it like your multidimensional self. You know, when you are burdened by a lot of limiting beliefs and fears and lower consciousness, you know, energy and thoughts and processes, you don't get the access to the higher stuff. That's why awakenings happen in stages, because it's activating parts of the nervous system to intake more energy, the physical body to open up to more energy.
I've seen you tell these people that they need to connect with this and they need to have this to get their life going. But what about the 90% of the world that's not into this and doesn't do that?
Yeah, I mean, here's my thought, and somebody else may have a different opinion, and that's totally fine. I believe we are all we are all called to this when it's the right time and when it's in the right way. I don't believe that we can just. That's why so many people are so closed, because they're not ready for that. That's not maybe part of their life path this lifetime. Maybe they may never awaken, you know, in this particular lifetime, and that's okay. Everybody has their role, no matter.
So they're
what
only so far along their journey or whatever. They'll come back another time, and maybe then
potentially,
then
yeah.
Well, that's you think about when Martini was on, and he talks about how it's like a play.
Right.
Exactly.
There's the lead, and then there's you know
players
supporting.
and supporting actors.
So
yeah.
those supporting were here to not understand. So because if everybody thought the same way, then it would not. It's kind of like if everybody was the same color, it'd be kind of boring. So you know, it's really having the opportunity to have differences and different opinions, and some people, like you said, you know, I have a brother. He's completely opposite of me. Same genes, same everything else. My vision's here, his vision's over here. So he probably will never be at the same level of enlightenment that I will be, and it's okay.
Yeah,
it's okay. And like you said, he might be there for a reason about pushing me to be a better human being or spirit.
The triggers, the pain, you know, all the things, the challenges we go through as humans, everybody's playing a role in that. And I don't even look at it as like I'm higher enlightened or anything. Like I don't even look at it as a hierarchical piece. It's just
he could be higher than me, but he's just
he's playing a different role to push you.
Correct.
Yeah. So it's like if somebody doesn't get it or doesn't like it or thinks that this is, you know, BS or she's a fraud or what, okay, cool, that's your opinion. Right. I know my truth. If that's what you believe, you're entitled to having it. Everybody, I always say opinions are like butts. We all have them, right?
And if you also think about it, if Jesus Christ himself came down today and landed right in front of our building, we'd think he's just probably a nut walking around.
If somebody walked in and said that, we certainly would.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
And even in his lifetime, as they say, I mean, there's so many people that didn't believe him, you know.
All right, let me ask you about my very, very favorite, the one thing that I do believe in, right? The one thing that I do believe in that has happened to me.
Yeah.
None of these other, I've never seen a spaceship, I've never seen anything. But synchronicity. What are your thoughts on synchronicity? Because that, to me, happens so often and so profoundly that I believe there's something to it. I just don't know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I call it synchronicity is like showing up as you being in flow. That there's a part of your consciousness and your awareness that has either been focusing on something so deliberately or has been thinking about it, even if it's subconsciously, and everything in your life is now exhibiting or reflecting, mirroring back to you those things that you have been thinking about or focusing on, putting your energy toward, and then it shows up in your reality. Another way of putting it is it's the divine orchestration of your life. Like the synchronicity are like those moments of, oh, wow, I'm on the right track, or wow, there's something about this, the configuration, the way these things all move together in such a perfect, organized way that
it's a 1 in a million shot that these things happen.
I don't believe it's a 1 in a million shot.
Oh, sometimes they are. Like if Tony and I wish I should have these like ready to go, man.
I know. I was going to ask you what kind of examples do you have?
There's one time I was walking and hiking, and I was listening to Coast, and they brought up this guy named Levi Strauss, and it wasn't Levi Strauss, the gene guy. It was a guy that invented apparently mead. Do you know what mead is?
I've heard of it. I don't know.
I have never heard that word ever in my life.
Okay.
Never. Do you know what that is?
No, but I know Levi.
Okay. Okay, well, it's not him, though. It's not the Gene guy. It's another guy. He has the same name as him, though. It's Levi Strauss. And he invented mead. And I read that, and I went, well, God, that's a weird thing. I never heard of that. Got back from the hike, changed my clothes, went to a bar, met my friends, sat down, and they had all these kind of exotic beers there. And they said, well, I can't drink gluten. And the guy says, well, we have a mead.
I love that. That's great.
And I was like, now, come on. That to me, I call that synchronicity. And I don't know what that is or why that's a 1 in a million shot, though, man.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that there are instances when we have those parts on our path where certain things come in that feel surprising, but then at the same time, it was already in your awareness. I mean, you drew it in some way because it popped into your awareness. Now, whether
sure
you
feels more than just.
I agree. I think
mean,
sometimes there's
come
synchronicities of things that we are focusing on and are deliberately implanted in the neurons in our brain, and we're focusing on it, and what we focus on tends to draw us towards those things. And then I think that there are some things like, near-death experiences or synchronicities that are so major.
See, but that's profound in your life. This is a meaningless thing. Who cares about this name of a beer or whatever?
Well, I would.
I mean, but it has no.
That's so awesome.
You guys have a problem with alcohol. Yeah, Tony and I do not. Now, we if it was like some profound thing, like you should change your major or you should go in entertainment or whatever you were called to do, that would make sense to me. But it happens to me on such meaningless things like that.
But that's only because you believe that it's meaningless. You're perceiving it as being meaningless. Because
how is that important in my life that this?
Well, it was in that
exists?
moment because the moment is all that really exists, and in that moment,
and it gave
was
you awareness.
It
well, it was fun for that 5 minutes. I was like, no way.
Yeah, and I mean, and what did it bring up in you? It brought like surprise. It was
bile. She
well,
asked.
that's not really fun.
No.
But
interesting.
I think it's also about we also place meaning on what is magnificent and what is meaningless. Like, what if it's all the same? And what if there's so many synchronicities happening for people on a daily basis, but because they're not present enough to even notice it, it is meaningless or it's not even.
Well, now that's what I've heard people say. We all have these synchronicities. It's just not everybody notices them.
Totally.
And I have them constantly, like freaky weird. And I don't try. I don't look for them. You see the numbers all the time.
222. Yeah, I see it all the time.
I see the numbers too. Actually, even before it was like 222 on the screen. I was like, oh, I love that.
You say you saw 666 all the time for some reason. It's
All
a
the
weird.
time.
See, it's weird.
They say that it's actually not
Put your tail away.
a bad number or negative number. Yeah. So, I mean,
Who's they?
I don't
The
know.
people on the Pleiadians?
No.
Oh.
That's not the Pleiadians.
Every time you say they, do people ask you? Do you mean the Pleiadians?
Sometimes, not always. I mean, they are a part of the work that I do, but they are not me. I am Vanessa. And when it's time and when it's appropriate, I will channel them when I feel guided to do that. And
But I mean, you mean channel them like you just open up to hear what they have to say?
No, so
or do you ask them things?
No, I have no idea what they're going to say when I'm working with a client or when I'm doing one of my events with groups. I literally just get the inspiration to create an event, or a client comes and they're like, I'm ready for channeling. I'm ready to do this work. Cool. We sit down and I basically look like this and I'm talking and my voice slightly changes. It doesn't feel like me, but I am there. And they will just stream. So for me, there's no thinking. It's just
So you just spit out the words that come into your head.
just fluid. Like you wouldn't even know that how much work it took to even get to this point.
And you know that it's coming from them through you.
Yes, because I go through a process of welcoming them in, protecting the space. I even days before I'm channeling privately or in my events, I'm preparing.
And you've done it, so you know the feeling. You
I know the
it's
feeling.
right.
If there was another being that comes in, I would know the difference because it's a certain kind of frequency.
Have you ever had any try to come in?
I have had one time something try to come in, and I immediately knew that something's not right here. This does not feel right. This feels like foreign to me. It feels foreign to my consciousness. Feels foreign to me energetically in my body. All of it, and it was, and I had to let that experience go. And it was, good practice for me to also have the contrast of what it feels like to know, because a lot of people ask, like, how do you know what you're channeling? And it's a great question. I think people need to be very discerning around channels. I'm 100% in agreement with that. And I know when they come through, and they're very loving, they're very entertaining, they're very direct, but they're doing it in such a way where it's like it's penetrating parts of your consciousness and parts of your ego, your belief systems to really get in there and help
But you know what they're saying is for this person sitting across from you.
or for the group. So it's
group.
very different for a group. They're gonna bring people together that need to hear these messages or these transmissions, but everybody's gonna be at different levels of consciousness and different life experiences and parts of their journey. So everyone's gonna find.
So they get these
something
words
in it.
of wisdom from beyond, sort of.
Exactly. And then they get to apply that because the Pleiadians know when I chose to allow them to work with me that it has to be grounded. It has to be very accessible and relatable to the people coming in, and something that they can implement and apply into their lives, because it's useless sitting in an audience or sitting across from somebody and just receiving some out there information about what it's like living in space or some other concept. That stuff is useless at this point. Really, the people that I work with, maybe for other people who channel those kinds of things, that's helpful for them, but for who I work with, it's about really helping you in your ascension and your awakening and really stepping into alignment and fulfillment with yourself.
It's always one way, though. Like
What do you mean
they
by
just
one
speak
way?
through you. You're not able to ask them.
Oh, when I channel for, let's say, my husband and I will have him ask questions for me. But no, it's not me talking and then talking to them. That hasn't happened. And I don't open my eyes. It kind of, the frequency just doesn't seem to stay there and connect quite as well. But yeah, it's just their stream of consciousness. They know when they're going to begin. They know when they're going to end. And they come through and they share what they share.
Folks in the chat room want to know if you feel like you have transcended space or time while you're doing that.
That's a great question. I'm not sure, actually, to be honest. What happens when I'm in that state, when I immediately go in, and I think probably some of the audience and clients can attest to this, you can see that it feels like home is the best way for me to describe it. The vibration is so...
Remember who said that?
So high. And it's like literally like liquid joy.
Wow.
Coming through. And I almost like sometimes I don't even want to leave it.
It's like an Edgar Cayce kind of a thing. And then afterwards, are you like exhausted?
Yes, I'm
really
tired. I cannot tell you how, this is the trance medium thing. I just want people to know, like, it looks really easy, but it's really hard on the body. Like, we're pushing the body to its physical limits. And I don't believe that it's the path for everyone. There's no doubt about it. It's taken I believe it's been my whole life that I've been training for this. But it takes tremendous amount of work. I'm going to practitioners weekly, multiple times a week, to get work on my nervous system, on my physical body, on my energy body, on my consciousness, on my own stuff that comes up. So it's a lot of work. But when I'm in that, there just really is no awareness of that. It's just like I feel it. It comes in. And it's like, whoa. Like,
and you just like wait it out. You say all those things, and then it's...
And then once I come out, it feels, I guess the best way to kind of describe it is... it is like a timelessness feeling. I don't feel like I'm transported somewhere. I feel like I'm still there. Sometimes it will feel like if I'm channeling this way, it'll feel like part of me is over there. So I don't know if that you want to look at that as transcending, space in that sense. But I haven't moved anywhere.
Yeah, okay.
But I definitely notice when I come out of it, like back into this plane, like, whoa, feels a lot denser. It feels different.
So is it a good experience for you? Like, is it fun to do this?
It is. And I learned so much in it because every time I'm doing the transmissions, I'm getting the work too. It's being programmed into me. I know I wouldn't be able to do this if it wasn't me also learning from it. So like, I'm not a master. I haven't transcended anything. I'm going through this process. I just happen to have been chosen to do this in this lifetime to be able to help more and more people around the world. And that's just really what it is. As long as I can help people to really connect and remember who they are and connect to that magnificence and design a life that they are just so fulfilled by, that's not harming anyone, that's not, being in that old consciousness and old programming, that's all that matters to me. That's really all that matters.
What do you think, Dr. Sweet?
Oh, I think it's great. I think there's a lot of people out there that are probably learning a lot that have their own experiences through being intuitive, because everybody's intuitive. But
see, everybody's everything. That's the thing.
Yeah, and some people are just have more experience with it. And I think, unfortunately, our time is pretty much up. But can people come to you and learn their own, not just as a client to give like but to learn their own trance channeling? And
I've had clients come to me who are wanting to open more of their channel and their intuitive gifts, and I would say between the channeling and the intuitive, like the quantum coaching work that I do,
Right.
that's all the training and the development for a lot of that. So I work with people to help activate their gifts, but if they're not meant to be a trance channel, then that's not their path.
Right.
But yes, I work with people to help them with those things.
Perfect. And people can go to your website.
Yes, they can. VanessaPetronelli.com.
Petronelli.
Yeah, and I'm on Instagram as well, Vanessa Petronelli, and also on Facebook, V Petronelli. And they can. I have got an April 3rd event actually coming up in Hollywood.
Ooh. Hey,
so for my
Wednesday.
Hollywood friends who are in the industry, I've got an exclusive event taking place actually right in Hollywood, not too far
So
from
can
here.
people go to this or not?
Yeah, if they want to come to it, they're going to have to RSVP on the ASAP, and
Okay.
they can contact me, and I can put them in touch with my publicist, Bridgetta.
Who?
Yeah, who? Sitting over there. And they're invited to come, and they can bring a guest as well if they'd like to come. And
Tony
it's
Sweet.
called Enhanced Success. I'm being
Spoken like a true
guided by
publicist.
my publicist.
That's exactly right.
Tell
We
them
have
the
a
title,
Pleiadian.
damn it.
And I heard that Tony Sweet will be there doing some juggling before you go
I
on.
will.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
we've
So
hired
in
a
a
wonderful
thong.
performer that evening.
Yeah, in a
He's-
thong.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
kidding.
Oh, perfect. Very entertaining, guys.
Might want to come late.
Yeah. Show up late. I mean, like, nobody showed up. Well, we thank you so much for being here. It was
Thank
fun
you.
and great conversation. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Please go to our website, and it's right here below, Vanessa Petronelli, right?
Yes.
Got it.
Very good.
.com. And thank you guys for supporting us, Truth Be Told, every week. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Listen.
See, he's his own publicist. He's able to
I know.
that a
I know.
boy.
Listen to us on iHeart, Spotify, Google Play, all over the place for our podcast. Subscribe there too. Share it with your friends. But until next time, I'm Tony Sweet.
Captain Ron.
You got it right here on Truth Be Told. See you later. Bye.